This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with our old friend John Sinopoli from Ascari Hospitality Group. How are you today, John?
Oh, as well as can be considering the circumstances.
Yes, yes, yes. So, with everything that is going on in the world, my first question is how has this COVID-19 crisis impacted your business?
Well, our business is zero. So
Right.
we obviously had to close our restaurants. We were not able to do takeout as we weren't set up for it. And then many of our staff were not comfortable with it, understandably so,
Just because
taking
they
those
would
risks.
be risking their risking being exposed, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes, and also a lot of them wanted to see relatives and elderly people and didn't want to carry the risk
Of
of
course, yes, yes.
contacting other people. And to be honest, Eric and myself included in that group. So we decided the best thing for our business was just to shut it down.
Yep.
We laid off all 97 employees.
97, goodness, right. Okay.
Yes, it's in a lot of difficult conversations. I mean, everyone understood what was happening and why, of course, but it didn't make it easier as we have some employees more at financially vulnerable than others, as well as just employees who we consider family, been with us for 15 years, and
Yes, of course, yeah.
looking to the future with complete uncertainty. So it was a difficult day. That was the 15th of March that we did that. And then I got home and was on a couple chat groups with former high school buddies and old friends, and ended up connecting with an old friend of mine who is an industry lobbyist. And I said, what are people in government saying right now? And he's saying they don't have any solutions. They kind of know what's coming down the pipe, but they don't really know.
Right.
Everyone's in very uncharted territory here. And if you want something to be done about your own situation, you need to communicate directly with them because the bold will dictate the terms.
Right. And
So
is how you came to start up SaveHospitalityCA.
correct. So I basically got home, and after commiserating with my partner for a little bit, decided just to get down to work and writing a letter and kind of putting together what I think would be the plan for survival and then recovery for our industry and for our own businesses. And so I put pen to paper, and then I decided to share that with my peers who owned other restaurants and were going through the same thing, and say, hey, what do you think? Have I hit everything here? Do we need to add a few things? And I started spreading it around, and then started circulating it. So once we had a letter and saying, hey, like, here's a letter we have written. Who wants to sign on to this? Because I'm going to send it to government through a few back channels. And so people started signing on. They started sharing it. I started getting a ton of emails saying people wanted to be a part of it. My partner Rose then got involved as she designed the document, and we said, instead of adding signatures like a petition, we would add the company logo, the name of the owners, and how many people they laid off for
Right.
like maximum impact.
Yes, yeah, that makes
And
sense.
then that began to grow, and I got in touch with the people at Food and Wine Industry Navigator and Dyson Forbes. Did some great work contributing both to the content of the letter as well as to the signatories. And then a wine agent, a good friend of ours, ended up putting it in front of the president of Oliver Bonacini, Andrew Oliver, who was immediately, it resonated with him as well. It immediately got in touch and said, guys, how can we amplify this? Like, let me put my marketing machine behind it. Let me get my people in, and I would like to contribute a few notes as well to the content. And he was very productive in terms of that. And then the document kept gaining signatures, and the content kept evolving as it became more of a collaboration and a real coalition of people with like-minded needs. And whether you were a restaurant that employed 6 people and had to lay everybody off, including yourself, or someone like Andrew who laid off 1,900,
Good
um,
Lord.
and and uh, we basically came to the conclusion that the fundamentals of our business are the same. We need the same action from government to survive, and we just need to make sure that our prescriptions to government are scalable from small to large.
Right.
And so we did that, and it continues to grow. We basically have a full-time staff of people now volunteering every day, just managing the document and the new signatories.
Right.
It's about 1,000 emails that have come through in the past 3 days of people who want to sign on. The document now represents probably north of 60,000 laid off employees,
Wow.
with well over 1,200 individual operators from Vancouver to Montreal.
That's
And
fantastic. Now, what kind of recommendations are you laying on the table here?
right. So the main asks at the moment, and there's recommendations in the document that some are immediate and some are long term.
Right.
The immediate asks are for all provincial governments to legislate a vacation or pause or forgiveness period temporarily for lease obligations. So currently, after yesterday, whoever didn't pay their rent, which is us included at all 4 of our
Yeah.
locations, are in legal violation of our leases.
Yeah.
Through no fault of our own, not because we weren't good at business or because we had to shut our doors and the taps of money were turned off. And so we had to pay our final payroll with limited funds for all 97 employees plus all of their vacation pay. So it was a very expensive proposition. We didn't have enough money left for rent, and if we did, in some instances, we needed to make sure we kept that money for down the road for relaunch.
Yeah, of course.
On the other side of this, whenever it happens to be. So that's immediate. Provincial governments need to do that.
Now, just one question for you here, John. Are you speaking about a deferral here or an actual writing off that rent?
We're asking for a deferral because we understand we can't screw over the landlords. The landlords,
yeah,
whether they be big or small, still need their money to operate as well. And we're not interested in creating a real estate crisis.
Yes, yeah.
What we're interested in doing is buying some time.
Right.
So with that bought time, we then want to go to the federal government and say, this is our plan. We need a massive cash stimulus now, not in 4 months when we're all allowed to reopen again, but we need that money now. And it should equal in and around 10% of our annual sales per store.
Right.
And that money will allow us to pay rent, pay our suppliers who are in dire need of money, because they're like you said, the wine agents are like on our list of our coalition are our suppliers and our construction companies and our service providers.
It's in there.
The guy who
part of that, of course. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we're an ecosystem, and that ecosystem feeds at the bottom, and that bottom of the ecosystem is the restaurant. The restaurant needs to be funded so that we can feed the rest of the ecosystem.
Of course.
The government needs to fund us to be closed. In doing that, they will stem the collapse of the industry and all of the support industries that are related to it. So that money needs to come fast for multiple reasons. One, not the least of which is to mitigate the number of immediate closures. So at the moment, we already know that about 10% of restaurants have already thrown in the towel.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And that is a horrible number, but that is going to grow massively with every week that passes.
Yep.
Because people just don't know what's on the other side of this. And if there's no government plan saying, okay, we're here to support you, we're going to fund you to get reopened, people are going to be like, I don't have the money to reopen. Like, there's no cash in the bank. And we all know what it takes to reopen a restaurant. We got to buy inventory. We got to bring our staff on. They have to prep the food. We have to get everything cleaned up. We got to retrain. There's so much money that needs to be spent just to open the doors. It's not like a retail business where you dust off your product and you unlock the door and people can start buying again. You know, we lost all of our inventory from March, got given away, thrown away, whatever. We have to pay for that inventory that we purchased and could not sell. And now we have to repurchase it again. So the government needs to do it now so that we can give hope to people who may like give this a go.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I had a question for you. In your recommendations, you speak of the government making way for forgivable loans. What exactly do you mean by that? Because I'm concerned somewhat that many small operations, they couldn't afford to get themselves into any, to take on any more debt at all.
Agreed. And it's not, that's exactly why it's called a forgivable loan. It's a forgivable loan in a sense that if the banks, we need the banks to administer this loan because the federal government can't move the money fast enough.
Right.
But if you meet all the conditions of the loan, you do not need to repay it.
I see.
So it's not a grant because it's not free money, but it's money given to restaurants. And with that money, they must pay their landlord. They must pay their suppliers. And when you reopen, upon paying HST and payroll taxes over a certain term, the loan becomes forgiven. So it basically, the government would collect its money back through the taxes that it normally collects from us. So it's not taxes above and beyond. It's just, it's an investment into us so that we remain open.
Right.
If we don't remain open, and if they don't do this, our numbers suggest that there will be a 50 to 75% failure rate of people who just close or cannot reopen.
Yep.
The consequences of that are unfathomable and way more expensive than the stimulus package we are
suggesting, recommending. Yes.
Yeah. And if you kind of do the quick math, currently, like beginning next week, the government will be on the hook for about $600 million a week just in EI, just for hospitality employees who've been laid off.
Wow.
So if you do, it's well over $2 billion a month. If half of the restaurants fail, well, they're still on the hook for paying half of those people that money, $1 billion a month. Plus, they're not taking in HST remittances, they're not taking payroll taxes, they're not making any income tax off all those people we would have employed. And also, if that's not bad enough, our suppliers have told us if 30% of you fail and don't reopen, we are bankrupt because we cannot carry the receivables that you owe us. We can't just absorb those losses.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Like, they have lines of credit to pay. They're the ones holding the bag right now, to be honest. Like, we're not making any money. Our employees are all laid off, but, and we're just not paying our bills. But because we're not paying our bills, they now have to go to the bank and say, I can't pay you my monthly line of credit because I have no cash flow.
Yeah.
So
because their cash flow is tied up in the restaurants, right?
Exactly. They basically finance us every month by sending us product on 30-day terms, and we pay. So
perhaps it shows that system is somewhat broken.
Well, that's a conversation for another day. Yeah. The reality of it, though, is that it shows how delicate the system is.
Yes. Yeah.
And it shows that without because our margins are so thin, we're not able to hold cash reserves. So we only make on average 5% margin. So that means that 95% of the dollars that come through our door go back out into the economic ecosystem, whether it's our 35% goes to our staff and labor, to our product costs with our suppliers, to our service providers, to taxes, to rent, to all of these big things. What that also says is that as an industry, it's that much more dangerous to let us fail, given that 95% of our income goes back into the economic community in which we participate.
Yeah.
And then also another point is that even though we are a $93 billion a year business, we don't have 10 CEOs representing the entire industry. And that $93 billion, the profits from that don't go directly into shareholders and foreign interests and whatever. All of the money goes back to the 100,000 operators who use that money to put food on the table for their own families.
Of course.
All of the money we make as profit doesn't go to some shareholders. It goes back into the community in which we live because we are members of our community where we own restaurants and we buy things at grocery stores and go to the movies and go to other restaurants and buy books and put our kids to school and pay our mortgages. So the effect that has on the economy the fact that all that profit and money that would be making in restaurants just doesn't exist anymore is way more damaging than if, for example, the auto industry would fail.
Yeah.
Because first of all, we are way bigger than the auto industry in terms of in number of employees and contribution to the national economy. We are 4% of the GDP, 7 to 9% of the workforce. And if half of that fails, it will basically put the country into a recession or depression.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, with all of this in mind, what kind of response have you had from the different levels of government?
So we've got, unfortunately, we've had a very limited response from federal government. Just in the past 2 days, we've been able to engage chiefs of staff from the Minister of Small Business and the Finance Ministry.
Yep.
And they are now listening, but we're not sure that the message is being acted upon in any way in behind the scenes. We have a meeting with them tomorrow over the phone again to continue to discuss our situation. They are all shocked when we show them the facts of our economic situation. They thought that the measures they took with the 75% wage subsidy and a $40,000 loan, interest-free loan, would solve all the problems. They're now learning how very wrong they were, and that like huge wide nets cast like that, catch-alls, just don't fix the problem specific to our industry. You know, it takes, we're so unique in the sense that, you know, we're very labor intensive. To make $1 million in restaurant business takes 15 employees. The next largest labor burden sector in the economy is retail, and they take 7 people to make $1 million. So it's half that amount. So we put so much more back into the economy with hiring people. We hire more people than anybody. We spend more people on labor than anyone. And that labor, by the way, if allowed to fall through the cracks, is the most vulnerable in society. These are people who will tax the social services system, the healthcare system, the mental health care system. Our employees don't make $100,000 a year and own a house in the suburbs. Our employees share apartments downtown and take public transit and live check to check.
Yeah, yeah.
So the knock-on effect is very, very troubling.
Yeah, the implications.
So the response from government has been not good enough. In short, the municipal governments have been very responsive, and because they understand what restaurants are to the fabric of society,
of course,
more than the other governments. They understand it intimately. They understand its relationship to tourism. They understand its relationship to the economy as a whole. The provincial governments have been very slow to act in terms of their jurisdiction that matters, which is lease and rental laws. They need to act and create a temporary pause on obligations. And the federal government needs to understand that we need an industry-specific solution. We are here to talk and educate them and show them what we think needs to be done. And we're also all ears if they think they have a better idea that could work. But they haven't engaged. And only in the past few days have they started to engage, and time is running out.
Wow. Now, if people wanted to learn more about your advocacy group, how would they go about doing that?
They can go to www.SaveHospitalityCA. If they're an operator, they can sign up their support. They can view our press release there, and they can look at our different partners like One Table and the Food and Wine Industry Navigator, as well as they can read other media and stats. And then there is also, for employees of the restaurant business, we've set up a parallel website called saveyourlocal.ca. And if you go to that website, which you can link through SaveHospitalityCA, you can send letters to your members of parliament directly to support the cause, because at the end of the day, we are doing this to save the jobs of all of our employees.
Of course.
Of course, we care about our own businesses and our livelihoods and all the money and time we've invested in our businesses. But we've also invested in people. and those people are the face and workhorses of our businesses. Without them, we are nothing. And so we really need to save their jobs and to save their livelihoods.
Well, John, I wish you all the very best with this project. It's obviously dire times for so many of us right now. And hopefully we can see some light at the end of the tunnel with this advocacy group that you have put together along with your colleagues.
Thank you, Jamie, so much for your time. Always
And,
great to talk to you.
and always great to talk to you. Thank you very much, sir.
Bye-bye.